This is part 3 of our Veterans History Project Oral History with Mr. William Doyle. Today is Sunday, April 27th, 2008. Bill, when we finished part 2, we were discussing the end of the activities that took place, the action on Hill 108 in June of 1944, specifically around the 17th to the 19th of June.
Right.
You had described the capturing of an 88 German 88
Right.
gun, and then subsequently the Germans took it back.
Right.
What happened after that? What happened?
Well, we came back up to that same spot where that 88 was, but not in that sunken road anymore. I was off in a field just adjacent to the sunken road where the 88 had been, and that's when, I think as we were advancing this time, that is when George Snyder was wounded. He was hit by, he was not hit by shrapnel, he was, somebody shot him with some German shot him with his rifle, you know. And I told George to stay there and wait for the medic to come up. And we kept on going, we weren't going to stay there too and get shot at, you know. So we kept advancing up to the next hedgerow, and I deployed the men along that hedgerow, and I happened to look back, and there's George Snyder walking out in the middle of the field, going back, you know. And he was hit again. A sniper hit him again, but it did not kill George. George went back to the hospital, and he came home. And that was I think that was on the 19th of June when this happened, and we took that hill back from the Germans and held it. They never did get back up there again. The Germans did not. No, that hill was in our hands, and we just held it. And now, after that, after the 19th of June, I can't tell you much about what happened. I know we were always going towards St. Lo.
Okay.
And at one time, my company and the 1st Battalion was sent forward to the Martinville Ridge to try to relieve the 116th Infantry up there. It was there they were tied down on the Martinville Ridge.
Now, how far is the Martinville Ridge from
Hill 108?
Yeah.
Maybe a mile.
And we're talking between June 17th and then on into July. It's not that far, but
no,
it's painful to get that far.
Well, we might go one hedgerow to another, you know. We might go 2 hedgerows or 3 hedgerows in a day, and no more than that, because you can't, it's hard to describe hedgerow fighting, because you have to know what a hedgerow is like there.
Talk about it a little more.
A hedgerow is a mound of dirt. That's the way the French built these hedgerows. They pile the dirt up so high, and then they let vegetation grow on top of it. There's trees growing on top of it. For 100 years, you know, it's been like this. And the Germans, perfect place for the people, for your enemy to hide. And you couldn't see them. They could see you coming across the field, but you could not see them hiding behind the trees in this hedgerow. And it was a perfect defensive place in Normandy there. But for the hedgerows, it was perfect for the Germans, not for us.
Did you have to learn how to take hedgerows? Did the 29th have to physically learn on the go?
We had no idea what the hedgerows were even there. We didn't know what it was going to be like. And like I said, we just had to fight from one field to another, and you're losing men all the time. You can't advance. When people are shooting at you, it's hard to do anything about it when you can't see them to shoot back at them, you know. So you just have to keep going until you run them out of their hiding place.
When your individual platoon, you would be part of a broader movement that was ordered to go take an objective.
Right.
Right?
That's right.
So in your unit, your specific objective might be, we need to take this hedgerow.
Right, right.
All right. So you're on the outside of the. You've taken one hedgerow. Now, you, to protect yourselves, you go up against the hedgerow.
Right. On the hedgerow, the fence on your right, and there's another one on the other side of the field, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have one squad going up this hedgerow and another one on the other side of the field going like that, you know. And until you get up to the hedgerow that you're trying to get to,
Mm-hmm.
where the Germans are hiding behind it, you know.
Are any of the Germans down in the sunken road, or are they physically behind a hedgerow?
They're always behind that. Now they're behind the hedgerow.
Okay.
Before, when that 88 was there on that sunken road, the Germans were with it, you know.
Yeah.
But most of the German infantry
Yeah.
were hiding behind these hedgerows, right?
But the hedgerows are running along. Also in the barrier, there's the sunken road that's behind the hedgerows, right?
No, the sunken road would be on the the fields would be on each side of the sunken road.
That's right.
Yeah, on each side of the sunken road.
That's it.
And we did not maneuver on that sunken road very much because that's a bad place to be. You wouldn't take the troops down the road like that where they had no way of getting out, you know. The only thing you could do is go back because on the side of the road, the hedgerows are so high you
Yeah.
could not climb over them either
Yeah.
way. And the only thing you could do was go fall back, you know. But no, we wouldn't maneuver on a sunken road like that.
So a hedgerow would be this mound of earth that would separate one farm field from another.
Right.
And then the sunken road would cut perpendicularly between properties, I'm guessing.
That's right.
Which would also have hedgerows on either side of it, right?
Right. Oh,
Higher
yes.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Higher. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a natural fortification,
It is.
and
It
it's
is
hard. And then you would send your squad out along a hedgerow side.
You would hug the hedgerow,
Mhm.
the side of the hedgerow.
Mm-hmm.
Try to. Until you got up to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would deploy alongside of that hedgerow, you know. We'd be okay then.
And you're deploying, so physically, you know, as you're deploying along the side, that there's probably Germans along that other side.
Right.
And you're fighting through the hedgerow. How do you do that, Bill? What do? You have to.
What I did several times was just toss hand grenades over the other side. Take a hand grenade and drop it over the other side of the hedgerow.
Would you physically throw it through the wood, through the?
He wouldn't try to
foliage?
throw it. Hit a tree and bounce back at you.
That's true.
No, you wouldn't. You try to place it yourself. Just drop it on, reach over top of the hedgerow, which you could easily,
Yeah.
and drop it. And
You could reach over top of the hedgerow where the actual
where the trees and shrubbery is growing out.
where it's come up to,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then you could reach over it. Mhm.
You could reach over them. Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you couldn't reach, you could always find a place where you could toss it, you know. You wouldn't stand back and throw it.
Mhm. I got it.
Because it would hit something and bounce right back at you, you know. But that's what I did several times. I would drop hand grenades on my other side of the hedgerow.
How heavy is a hand grenade?
Hmm?
How heavy is a hand grenade?
No heavier than a baseball.
Not too heavy, huh?
No, it might weigh 4 or 5 ounces,
Yeah.
maybe 6. I don't think it weighed a half a pound.
Oh, really? Okay. You'd pull a pin.
There is a pin you pull out, and when you toss it, you've got about 5 or 6 seconds before it goes off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you better be out of the way of it. That's why you could drop it over a hedgerow, and you had no problems there because you were when the grenade exploded on the other side, it wouldn't hurt you at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't going to it wouldn't blow a hole in that hedgerow, that's for sure.
You could hear the Germans, I bet, on the other side, right?
Right.
They're right there.
Oh, sure.
Would they taunt Would they shout things?
No, not really. I never heard them try to taunt us into anything, holler at us. Because you could hear them talking amongst themselves, you know. Somebody giving orders, I guess. But no. The only thing I remember about fighting is just what I told you.
Yes, sir.
I'm either shooting my rifle or dropping hand grenades.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a process. You have to do it. It's
Right.
just what you have to do. Now, I've learned or understand about the Germans had the machine gun, the MG-42, right?
well, whatever their automatic weapons were, yeah.
That was the big weapon. Was that what you
Well,
encountered a lot? Was
Most
it?
all of their weapons were automatic weapons.
They were automatic weapons.
Every one was an automatic weapon.
Were you guys surprised about that when you first went into battle with them? That they were facing always automatic weapons a lot?
Yeah, because they fired so fast, you know, that when you could almost count the shells coming out of our light machine gun, you know, that, like that. But when those Germans fired one of theirs, it was just a rip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That,
Yeah.
they were so fast. But then again, the regular infantryman, he had a rifle too. He had a Mauser bolt-action rifle.
Yeah.
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 But they had so many automatic weapons with them. They had ammunition carriers just to carry ammunition for them. And,
How difficult an opponent were they? They were. How good a soldier was the German soldier? How good a.
excellent soldiers,
Yeah.
I think. Well, they were in Normandy. A lot of them were old men. But the regular German soldier was a good soldier. He's a good fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we ever have to fight again, I hope they're on our side.
Yeah. I guess you would.
Yeah.
Would they build crisscross the automatic weapons,
Yes.
the machine guns on the open fields?
I wanted to tell you about that when we get up to the 17th of July when I was wounded.
Oh, all right. So from the 19th of June, when you fall back from Hill 108, then eventually day by day you're moving forward.
Right.
Now, just in your day by day life, where do you bivouac at night? What do you do?
Well, you've already dug your foxhole,
You dug your foxhole.
and that's where you stay.
How hard is it to dig the foxhole?
Well, right there in Normandy, it was tough. It was dry, the ground was hard, and there was nothing but you had to pick at it to really to dig a foxhole there. I remember the ground was very, very hard, but we managed to dig a hole and get into it.
How big a hole?
Just big enough for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
A slit trench,
Slit
as long
trench.
as your body, and he would dig it about a foot, maybe 2 feet deep.
2 feet deep?
So that your no part of your body is exposed then, you know,
Yeah.
while you're laying in there.
And do you try to dig it close to a hedgerow?
Right, we would sometimes dig right into the hedgerow, you know,
Yeah.
right into it. It would give you more protection that way. Yeah.
And so that's what we go on every day. And every day you're given an assignment. You have to keep moving forward. So you're physically in combat
Right.
every day. You're not in a reserve or drop back. You're
We would
moving
fall
ahead.
back, and someone else would take our place sometime, but you had no place to fall back to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back 100 yards, the Germans are dropping mortar shells on you.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so, but yeah, we would get a rest area every once in a while, but it would be out of a small arms fire. But still, like I said, the Germans could drop mortar shells on you back there too. You know, we're only a few miles from the beach.
Yeah.
So you had no place to retreat to.
That's true.
It,
You're still in a
But-
process of moving ahead. They've
Yeah.
got an objective, and that objective is St. Lo.
Our
Right?
objective was St. Lo. Yes, indeed. That's exactly what it was. And sometime after the 19th of June, we did go forward to that, I told you, the Martinville Ridge, because the 116th Infantry was there, and they were tied down. and we were supposed to relieve them, help them to get started again. But I don't remember too much about that until we were until about the 17th of July when I was wounded. I remember that day very well, and the day before.
Talked about the 16th and 17th of July on the Martinville Ridge.
Okay.
Okay.
I remember the C Company moved up onto this high ground, and it was in the evening, almost dark when we moved up there, and we had to dig in. We dug our foxholes, and there again we could hear the Germans talking. They were I don't think they were any more than 100 yards in front of us, going down, looking down this hill, and you could hear the horse and wagon, or the horse coming up, clip-clopping up the road, and probably bringing shell to the German soldiers. I'd heard that many times before in the evening. That's the way they brought their food up to the soldiers, and you could hear them talking like they might be calling roll or something like that, you know. But anyway, I remember after we were dug in, an artillery officer came into our field where we were, and he said, "The Germans are moving up." They thought they were moving up reinforcements, so we're going to throw some artillery shells at them. That sounded pretty good to me. I didn't care. And he said, "Watch it, some of them might fall short." They're only firing 100 yards in front of us, you know. And I'll tell you one thing, every shell that came over there seemed like it was coming right in my foxhole. It did. It was really scary, and I mean to tell you, I was scared. It's a wonder I didn't have some laundry to do when it was over. But it didn't last very long. And then after that, everything was quiet until daylight in the morning, and that's when we started our attack again on St. Lo. I remember my lieutenant, I didn't even know his name, he was brand new, just came into our outfit, and he was leading with the first squad, and I was behind. That was my position anyway, behind the first squad with the lieutenant. He started through an opening in a hedgerow, and right away he was wounded. Somebody shot him, and he said to me, "Bill, I've got to get a medic. You just take over." So I started through this field too. Now, you know what one of these fields is like? There's a hedgerow on each side of it, you know. Hedgerow on each side, and down the end here there's an opening in each side of that, in each one of those hedgerows. An automatic weapon is in there, firing. Each one is firing diagonally across that field, and all you could see was one big green X. These tracers, German tracers, were green. They weren't red like ours, and there was nothing for me to do but to get out of that field. And I did. I took that first squad and part of the second squad out, and we got back where the night before some troops had been out there reconnoitering, and they told us that the Germans had been dropping mortar shells into that field. Well, anyway, I went back into that field, and I deployed the men alongside the hedgerows, and I went looking for my company commander to see what I was supposed to do. Now, there's no way I was going to get through that other field, not with those machine guns firing across it like they were. Well, anyway, that's when I looked back, and I saw Colonel Terry and some other officers coming towards us. And I know the colonel was coming up there to try to get us moving again. You know, we were tied down. I saw an officer get hit by some shrapnel from a mortar shell that the Germans were dropping. They were little mortars that they had. They had a 50 millimeter mortar that they called a knee mortar. I think they called it a knee mortar because of the shape of the base plate. The base plate was like a horseshoe. I don't know why I don't know why it was shaped like that, but it was. And it was a little 50 millimeter mortar, and that were the shells that they were dropping into that field. And one of this lieutenant was hit bad. But I didn't pay much attention to that because there was too much else going on. And when I saw Colonel Terry, I looked at him, and he just kept on going, and some of the officers already in the field said, "Get down, Colonel, get down." And he wouldn't do it. He just kept walking, and bingo, just like that, some sniper hit him in the head. I saw his helmet fly off. He hit the ground, and he was dead. And I guess maybe a half hour after that, I was hit by a fragment from a mortar shell, and that was the end of my combat then.
Where were you physically? How were you positioned when you were hit by that fragment? Where were you? On the side? Were you on the ground? Were you standing?
No, I was standing. Yes, I was standing behind a hedgerow, and that mortar shell hit behind me. It hit the ground behind me, and some of the fragments went through my arm here.
Okay.
And went through my arm, and in a little while I'll show you another piece of shrapnel in my wallet.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I will. It's in my scrapbook in there. I'll show it to you. Or I would have had a sore butt too. But yeah, and after that, I was sent back to to a medic. Oh, gee, I'm trying to think of what they call it. It's like a little field hospital, you know. And I remember they bandaged my arm up. It wasn't bleeding, you know. That's strange. When I got back to the hospital, they took that bandage off, and there was a little spot of blood on each place where the where the piece of shrapnel went through here and came out, you know. There was a little bit of blood there. It didn't bleed hardly at all. They were telling me that these fragments from that mortar shell are red hot. And when they go through you like that, like they did my arm, it sort of cauterizes things, and you don't bleed a whole lot. Well, I didn't anyway. I didn't bleed much at all. But that fragment did go all the way through one side and out the other. And I remember there was a fellow laying on the ground there on a stretcher, and the doctor said, he's got a chance if we get him back to the field hospital. And he said, you got one good arm, he's talking to me, get on the corner of that stretcher. And I had to carry him across the field, across the road to a Jeep, and we put the stretcher on the Jeep, and that's when they took us back to the beach, to the real hospital. I'm trying to think what they call these little stations out there where you have
like an aid station?
Just an aid station.
An aid station? Yeah.
That's what it was. I couldn't think of the aid to say that. But yeah, I got back to the hospital, and I stayed there overnight. They put me on a plane the next day and flew me back to England.
Where did you go in England? Do you remember?
I went to the 96th General Hospital.
Uh-huh.
I don't know where it was. And I stayed there for about a week. And I really wasn't wounded bad enough to stay in that hospital, because there were some awful sights there. People, no arms, no legs, and it's just an awful thing to see, how these people were wounded, you know. Well, they shipped me out to a station hospital in Wales. And I stayed in that station hospital until the middle of 26th of September.
What kind of a recovery did you have to have? What was wounded in your arm? Where did you?
They shot the muscle. All this muscle was going in my arm here. Yeah. I had a hole in there about that big.
Yeah.
That big around. And they gave me therapy. The therapy see, right here is a wagon wheel, big wheel. It's got a handle on the outside. Mm-hmm. I'm just turning that wagon wheel like this, you know. Uh-huh. Every day I had to do that because my arm was like this. It was bent. I couldn't straighten it out.
Yeah.
And that when I wasn't turning that wagon wheel, I had a 5-pound bag of sand that I was carrying around all the time. They're trying to straighten my arm out, you know. And but they didn't. But they sent me back to duty anyway on the 26th of September. Mm-hmm. And I went to the 10th Replacement Depot in Lichfield, England. And around that 10th Replacement Depot was a main prison camp for American prisoners. not prisoners of war, just people that went AWL and things like that, you know, got in bad trouble. They didn't treat those, they didn't have any mercy on the prisoners there. They didn't, the guards that were guarding them, you know. But anyway, I was really glad. I had one pass while I was there, and I remember going to Birmingham in England. The 10th Replacement Depot wasn't too far from Birmingham. And after seeing the way they were treating the prisoners there, I just wanted to be a good boy and get out of that place. I was in the replacement depot, not the prison.
Was there a reason why you weren't returned to the 29th? Do you know?
Yes. I couldn't use my arm.
Okay.
I couldn't. There was no way I could carry a rifle and fire it. And so they sent me back to France, to Le Havre in France, and that was the replacement depot there. And while I was there, I was attached to Ground Forces Reinforcement Command.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me a train crew. I had 2 complete field kitchens, 2 mess sergeants and their cooks. I had 1 medic, and my commanding officer was Lieutenant Colonel Harry Blakely, a real fine gentleman, a good officer he was. He treated me like I was his son, no kidding, treated me wonderfully well. And we got together. I worked with him for 9 months, and we carried troops out of Le Havre all over Europe. Oh, Germany, France, Belgium, Holland, anywhere. I even went to Luxembourg one time to take some troops there.
No, you're on a train.
On a train.
All right. And mostly you would go to the depot to pick these guys up?
I was stationed. The first place that I lived in Le Havre was a German hospital, and it was way down underground, way down. They had fans to suck air down there so that you could breathe, have something to breathe. I only lived there. I stayed there maybe a week until I got my train in shape. Then I lived on the train after that all the time.
You lived on the train?
Boxcar.
Lived in a boxcar?
Yeah.
You lived in a boxcar, huh?
Well, for a while it was a boxcar, and then I got another car. It was like a German, like a mail car that they had.
Yeah?
Had good quarters in it, you know. The colonel was on one end, I was on the other with the medic. And the cooks, they slept in their kitchen cars. And that's the way it was. And we would get... troops would get off the boat in Le Havre. That's the truth. They were coming from the States, get off the boat there, right on our train. And we would take them. The first place I went was to Neufchâteau. That was up there. Wasn't too far from Bastogne.
Yeah.
That was at Christmas time, Christmas Day and Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after I was up there at Neufchâteau. I took 1,000 troops there.
They were all from these divisions that were coming in to fight the Battle of the Bulge.
All recruits. Yeah, no. These prisoners were not going to the Battle of the Bulge. They were going up to a place called Fayonne. It was in the Vosges Mountains there, and I guess it's in France, and near the Maginot Line. It was really, but they were replacements for troops that were coming up from the south of France. I think. Mark Clark's troops. I'm pretty sure it was General Mark Clark's troops coming up from the south. And these, the 1,000 troops that I had on the train were for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
what was your day-to-day work like while you're on the train? Describe that. What's that like when the train's moving and you're on your way?
Well, you take from Le Havre up to Neufchâteau, or it's probably, I don't think it's much more than 100 miles, maybe 150 miles. It'd take 2 days to get there because you couldn't go, there was no direct route any place over there. One place where you're supposed to go, the railroad is bombed out, you know, destroyed. So you have to zigzag around till you find a way to get there. I didn't have anything to do with that because it was all, that was the, I always called them Rob, did that Railway Operating Battalion. In my logbook, you always see Rob did this or Rob did that, you know. But that means Railway Operating Battalion. They were the ones who were responsible for getting us to our destination. And my main job was always finding a place where we could stop and feed the troops.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes I'd have to argue like the devil with people. They say, "Oh, we've got a green light. We can't stop here. We got to feed these troops." So sometimes you'd have to fight with those engineers on the trains. They were Frenchmen, you know, and I guess they had their job to do too. But we had to stop the train, set the kitchen, the food outside, and let get the troops off the train, and go through a chow line, let them eat, and then get back on the train again.
Uh-huh.
It's not easy to do.
Uh-huh.
You know, sometimes they didn't have sidings to push the train off one. That's the main reason why they couldn't stop all the time. You know, you couldn't stop on the main line, tie up all the traffic. But sometimes we had to, and but that's the way it was. We'd stop the train. The cooks would set up the food outside, alongside the train. All the troops would get off and walk through the chow line and eat, and then get back on the train again, would take off. And we could do all that in about an hour, hour and a half. I'll show you. Mm-hmm. I'll let you see my log.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. That would be really good.
Yeah, I kept a log the whole time I was on that job on the railroad. I can tell you where I was almost every minute of the day for 9 months. Like that. Every time that train stopped, I'd write down where we were, how long we were there, go to the next stop, you know.
Sounded like you did that from September until the end of the war, right? Till May of 45?
And May the 8th, at the end of the war in France, in Europe. I remember I pulled into Le Havre on the 7th of May. I laid over there on the 8th, and on the 9th I picked up 1,000 troops, and we were on our way to Bamberg in Germany.
Really?
Right. Bamberg is just about as far east in Germany as you can go without running into Czechoslovakia. Yeah.
And what happened there?
In Bamberg, well, now, you know, it would take us almost 5 days to get there. Mm-hmm. And this is a one-day ride on the train in normal times. But after we got there, the troops would go to the replacement depot. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we'd have to lay over until we got another train load of troops to bring them back. We did this several times. After the war, we were taking troops back to Antwerp. It was Camp Top Hat in Antwerp. We'd take them there. There was another camp, Lucky Strike and Old Gold, near Le Havre, and we would take troops to if they were going home, you know, going back to the States. And if some of the troops would go to the Pacific, the troops that hadn't been over there very long, we'd take them down to Marseille, and they would get on a boat there. If they went to Marseille, they were going to the Pacific. They go into Camp Top Hat in Antwerp or Le Havre, they were going back to the States. But that's the way it was. I was just hauling troops all the time, and no less than 1,000 troops at one time. There was always 1,000 troops on the train.
Really?
20 men in a boxcar, yeah. And those, they called them 40 and 8s.
Yeah. 40
men or 8 horses. It was, yeah. That's what the French would put in there, 40 men or 8 horses, you know. That's what the 40 and 8 really meant.
And off they would go, the 40 and 8. So off they would go.
There were little boxcars, maybe half as big as one of our boxcars over here.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
I wish I had some pictures of them. I used to take a lot of pictures, and my album, I'll show you some in there.
Oh, I'd like to just say that we can maybe take a video, a little of it too.
But like I said, now I did that for 9 months, and sometime in July of 1945, I was back in Le Havre. Now I was in Compiègne at this time. For some reason or another, we had stopped there, and my orders were there for me to go home. And I'll tell you the truth. Colonel Blakely said to me, "Bill, why don't you stay with me and go down to Marseille one more time, and I'll see if you don't. Sure I can have you made a master sergeant." I looked at the colonel. I said, "Colonel, I wouldn't stay over here another day for your silver leaves," and I meant it too. I'd already been there for almost 3 years, you know. And yes, sir. I said, "Colonel, I wouldn't stay here another day for your silver leaves." And I meant it too. So I stayed in Compiègne overnight, and they sent me to Antwerp.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on a boat it was a Liberty ship, the Moses Austin.
And what was the date again that you returned on the Moses Austin?
This was in, let's see, in August, the last part of August. Probably the middle of August when I went to Camp Top Hat.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the 6th of September, that boat pulled into Hoboken, New Jersey, and that's where I landed in Hoboken.
Mm-hmm.
I went to back to Kilmer, went to Camp Kilmer there, stayed overnight. I sent a telegram to my wife, told her I'd be in Fort Meade the next day. I knew that they told me this. And the next day I was in Fort Meade at 4.5 in Chisholm, the same barracks that I've spent 14 months in while we were in the States here, you know. Same barrack that I was in for 14 months. And it was odd that they did that. I don't know why it happened like that, but it did.
You had said earlier you wanted to clarify about when you first deployed to Europe, you didn't deploy through Fort Dix, you deployed through Camp Kilmer?
Oh, it was Camp Kilmer, yes.
Yeah.
I never went to Fort Dix.
Right.
I don't even know where Fort Dix is to tell you. I know it's in New Jersey someplace, but I was never in Fort Dix. When we left Camp Landing in Florida, we went to Kilmer.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember going through Baltimore. We went through Camden Station. I could have that train was going so slow, I could have stepped off there and gone on home if I wanted to. And I really wanted to, too, but I didn't. When we got up to Kilmer, we stayed there 2 or 3 weeks, and we had passes. I came home a couple of times from there, just overnight passes, you know.
Right before you formally deployed, yeah.
And my friend Bill Douglas, he was married on the 28th of September in 1942, and on the 28th of September, Bill was married, and on the 5th of October, he was on a boat going to Europe. Yeah, Bill lives down in Linthicum. I see him right often now, a lot.
Do you?
As a matter of fact, I was with him yesterday.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And off you went.
I get together with some of the fellows. Steve Melnikoff lives up there in Cockeysville. Every second Tuesday of the month, we get together and have lunch. Bill Douglas, Steve Melnikoff, George Linthicum, and myself. About 4 or 5 of us, we get together. See, those most of the fellows in my company were from Baltimore.
Uh-huh.
Even the replacements at first, they were from Baltimore, because the Dandy 5th the 5th Maryland is from Baltimore, you know, and that was our outfit. The 5th Maryland became the 175th Infantry.
You it sounded like you picked up after the war and continued. Did you have continued? You have a strong affinity with the 29th Infantry Division Association.
Oh yeah.
What did you do after the war? How did you continue that association?
Well, after the war, well, I wasn't interested in any service organization, to tell you the truth. I wanted to get away from the Army. So my wife and I took a little trip for about a month, no, not a month, a week or two. And then I went back to work. I went back to work for the Calvert Distilling Company.
Yeah. How was your arm by this time, by the way?
I still couldn't straighten it out.
Okay.
I can't use this arm even today. No, it's like it's not normal. Let's put it that way. Yeah, it isn't normal.
It didn't impact your work, though, did it? The work that you were doing?
It did not affect my work, no.
Good.
Because the jobs that I had there were just running machinery. And once you get the machinery going, it's a continuous operation, and it just runs, you know. All you have to do is make sure that nothing happens to change your operation. You can, yeah, it was easy, but...
You were describing your post-war activities, and you were saying that you went back to the distillery, and did you take advantage of the GI Bill? Did you do for anything?
I never did.
No?
I never took advantage of it, not at all. I should have, but I didn't.
It's okay.
I had a fairly good job. I was making good money and raising the family.
Yeah?
Yeah, and my daughter came along in 1946, 47. She came along, and Mike came 2 years later. And that's all I was interested in, my family. I didn't get into the 29th Division Association until about maybe 20 years ago. I got to talking to some of the fellows. I'd meet Johnny Burns, a good friend of mine, good buddy of mine in the service. He wanted to get in the 29th Division Association too, so we joined them.
Why do you think you waited 40 years to do that? Why do you think you didn't? If you don't mind telling me.
I just wasn't interested, that's all. I wasn't interested one bit, only in my family. I was buying a home, getting it straightened out.
Yeah.
You know.
So
and all my interest at that time was my family.
So a lot of people don't, not a lot of people, you chose not to really be involved either in like the VFW or the,
No, I did not. I joined the American Legion almost as soon as I got home, because it was right there in Halethorpe, and there was a band, all those old fellows had been in World War I, they wanted me in there, you know.
Yeah.
I'd see them in church, you know, and Halethorpe was a little town, a small town, you know,
yeah.
And everyone knew you knew everybody in the town. And they were after me to join, so I did, but I never was active. I think I paid dues for about 2 years, and I've stopped paying dues in the American Legion then too. And like I said, about 20 years ago, I joined the American Legion. I took out my memory is, I can't think of the words I want to say. I don't have to pay dues anymore.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, see, I just took out a life membership. That's what I was trying to say.
To get a life membership.
And
okay.
And American Legion, the VFW, and the DAV. I took out. The first one I got was the DAV. I must have joined the DAV sometime in the late 50s, because I remember it cost me $75 for a life membership. That was cheap. And so I've been in the DAV longer than either one of the other services.
And that's the Disabled American Veterans, right? DAV.
Disabled American Veterans.
And what does that do? How does that help you as terms of being a vet?
It helped me a lot in getting a compensation and getting me into the hospital, and it helps me with everything. So I'm 30% disabled. That's my percentage, and that's pretty good. I get almost $400 a month from the government for that, and $382 to be exact. Yeah, and I get my hearing aids.
Yeah.
Don't cost me a penny. And when I run out of batteries, I have a little card in there I send out to Denver, Colorado, and they'll send me about a 6-month supply of batteries for my hearing aid. And I go down to the VA hospital to see a doctor down there, and I get my medicine there too. I take high blood pressure medicine, and some other things too for cholesterol, things like that. and I pay $8 for a 30-day supply
Good.
of medicine. Yeah, which helps me a lot. That blood pressure medicine that I take, I get they don't give me they give me a 3-month supply, and it costs me $24, and it would cost me well over $200 for that medicine for each one that I take. If I had to buy all the medicine that that they have me on,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be spending every 3 months. I'd be spending $300 or $400. I know, maybe more than that.
So it's been really a good thing for you to have.
So the DAV has treated me good. The Veterans Administration has treated me good too. Yeah.
Your move about 20 years ago to, what encouraged you again to join the 29th Infantry Division Association?
Well, I started going back and associating with some of the fellows that I'd been in the service with, you know. And I knew them. We might talk on the telephone or something, but we got to going out in the evening for drinks, you know, or something like that. And that's when Johnny Burns and I decided to get back into the 29th Division Association.
Mm-hmm.
And poor old Johnny, about 3 months after that, he had up and die on me. But then I ran into Bill Douglas again. Bill and I had been in the service together. He was in C Company. Steve Melnikoff, and like I said, George Linthicum, Sam Krause. You know, we get together now every second Tuesday of the month. We get together, and
Well, that's a
so,
good.
you know, I've got a little album there you can look at and see what we do on the second Tuesday. You know.
Yeah, that would be a fun thing to do. Yeah, we'll have to get a look at that, and we'll video that next. And before we, just to finish up, so you went back and you joined the association about 20 years ago. So you would have been out of the war for over 40 years, and you decided to, and it's been a good thing for you to be back involved in talking with, being with the guys.
Yeah.
And it seems some of the histories that I've read as well, the Joe Balkowski histories, that seemed to all have been written right around those times. Have you talked to the historians with the 29th Association?
I talk to Joe once in a while, but we don't talk about history. It's always Joe says, "How's Kathy doing?" or this, that, and the other. You know, he knows my daughter too, Kathy. But no, we never talked about history. I want to show Joe. I want to let Joe see my album in there. I want you to take a look at it too.
Sure.
Before you leave here, I have some things in there that irreplaceable. For instance, I have a menu off the Queen Elizabeth. It was sort of the October the 5th, 1942, and the officers' mess. Not my mess, the officers' mess. Guys, they're eating high on a hog. We're way down the hole of that boat eating scrambled eggs or powdered eggs, you know, and things like that. But the officers did pretty well for themselves. But I didn't tell you, when I got on the Queen Elizabeth, they made me an MP. I don't know why.
Right.
Because there was an MP battalion on the boat. But they were not active, didn't active as MPs, but they made me an MP, made me wear that brassard.
Yeah.
And I had the run of that ship.
You had the run of it,
every
that's right.
place. And I tell you, once I ate down our mess was on our deck, way down in that boat. I ate down there twice. And from then on, I was walking around one night, and I happened to go into the engineer officers' mess. These were British officers, not our officers. They were engineers on the boat. And that's where I ate from then on. After they were finished, I had pretty good food. But I did. I walked on. And you know what? I knew that the Queen Mary had an accident up in the Clyde River before anybody else on that ship knew.
Really?
I knew. I was up close to the bridge one time, and I heard them talking about the Queen Mary had hit an English frigate and cut that thing right in half.
Oh man.
And they never stopped.
I heard about
Kept
that.
right on going.
So you heard them talking up on the
That's
bridge
a good
about
bit of
it.
history that you should know about. And the 116th Infantry, and I think the 115th was on the Queen Mary when that happened. Yeah, they were about a week in front of us. They left New York about a week before the Queen Elizabeth did. But that's the truth. In the Clyde River, this English frigate cut across right in front of the Mary, and the Mary hit it and cut it right in half.
You have read various books over the years about that sort of chronicled your own, the broader view of your own experiences. You have any books that you would recommend that people read that?
Yes, all of Joe Balkowski's books, Omaha, and I have several of them in there. Every book that he wrote is really a treasure. It's full of history, nothing but history, and easy reading too.
Yeah, very good.
Easy reading, you know. You get interested and you don't want to put it down. I would recommend every book that Joe has ever written.
He's great.
Yeah, and then there is one I have there, the history of the 29th Division.
Mm-hmm.
This is pretty good, and I have a history of the 175th Infantry too. It's a pretty good book to read. But I wouldn't part with the history of the 175th Infantry. I don't even lend it to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. You can't buy one now. And the 29th, the history of the 29th Division, that's easy to get. You can buy that one at our conventions. The supply officer has them there for sale.
Bill,
But,
when you talked about, you know, the number of years that you went, you raised a family, you worked. Did you think a lot of? Did you sort of put your wartime experiences behind you? Did you?
yes.
Did you just weren't so interested
Yeah.
anymore in being involved in that, in thinking about
No,
that?
because I'll tell you the truth, I wanted out of the Army bad. I didn't like being in the Army. I didn't like regimentation.
You're a great soldier, Bill. You're a great soldier. You didn't like the regimentation?
No, I didn't like some kid telling me what to do all the time, you know. But I did good. I did well in the service. As soon as I finished my basic training, they made me a corporal. And about 3 months after that, they made me a buck sergeant. And I wasn't in the Army 1 year